All right, everyone. So as a reminder, I'm Dina Gentili, and I'm the Director of College Events and Programming. And we do have a big weekend coming up. May 15th, we have our College Coach Clinic, and hopefully everyone filled out the form and RSVP'd so we can get you all set to participate in that. It's going to be an amazing event. And then on May 23rd, we have another event, our mixed club event. So you'll be able to play with other people across the clubs within your age group. So we're really excited about those two events. And leading up to the events, as you know, we've had guest speakers who will speak to our core values. And today we have a really special guest. Dr. Shawn Ladda is here with us today. She's really special to me. She was very instrumental in my development in becoming a coach. I remember just sitting down at a table, Pocono Cup, having a talk about what I'm going to do with my life. And I was an undergraduate at Adelphi University. And from there, I went on and I basically followed in Shawn Ladda's footsteps, honestly, and then enrolled at Springfield College and was an assistant coach. And my parents asked me after that Pocono Cup weekend what I wanted to do with my life. And I just said, I'm just going to be like Coach Ladda. She's awesome. And that's what I did. And every one of you needs a mentor that believes in you, encourages you. Mentors find you as much as you will find them. It really was a chance meeting on a field. I think I was going to take over the field. I was this young coach coaching a team with Dick Dawson, if you remember, Shawn. And I kind of took up a lot of space. And I remember she came over and was like, this is my field. And it was a negotiation, but that's where I met her. And it was just from there, we just started going to the same tournaments. And it was really inspirational to me to kind of learn from her and follow in her footsteps, because I became a professor as well, because Shawn is a professor. So I know you all read her bio. She is definitely a legend in women's soccer, and I do want her to share her story, her journey, and she will touch upon our core value of legacy building. So thanks everyone for being here today. And Dr. Shawn Ladda, welcome. This is The Impact, and we're so happy to have you here.
Well, I am thrilled to be here with The Impact. And I already know who are the leaders. I can see them. I can see their faces. So Callie and Sydney and Haley and Anna and Isabella and Olivia and Carmela and Sarah and Riley and Wiley and Jillian and Jesse. Oh my gosh. Oh, I see Abby. Yeah, I'm not going to miss you right away. Leaders have their cameras on. Can I get anyone else to have their camera on? Because you know what? Leaders are, oh, there we go. Keely was a leader for a second. Oh, Sophia's a leader. And I see, is it Reese? Reese? Yeah. Reese, I love that name because actually I went to Hershey High School, Hershey, PA, Chocolate Town, USA. I bet some of you have played soccer there. Anyone? No? Not yet? They have a lot of tournaments there, but what they're really known for is the chocolate factory. So thank you, my leaders, for being on camera. I teach at Manhattan College in the beautiful Bronx, New York City. I know you're probably wondering, why is it Manhattan if she is in the Bronx? Well, actually, Manhattan College was founded in Manhattan, all right, one of the 5 boroughs of New York City, way back when in 1853. And then they moved up to the Bronx, the farmlands of the Bronx, because they needed more land. So hence Manhattan College. I try to give you a lot of trivia because I never know when one of our impact leaders will be on Jeopardy. And I want to make sure that you win, win Jeopardy. So I try to give you a lot of trivia along the way. But Dean has been telling me about all of your soccer prowess. And, a key attribute to being successful in soccer, and actually I should say your team, is team dynamics and what you bring as a person. So not only we know your great soccer ability, but we also want to know that you have great personal abilities. All right. You can get along with other people. What a concept, right? It's not that easy to find a lot of people that actually played college soccer for 4 consecutive years. And part of that is oftentimes on a team, sometimes not everyone gets along all the time, right? Sometimes, we disagree with the coach or we disagree with our teammates. But someone who, has those great team attributes, they contribute positively and they can let some things roll off their back and they put team first. And so we know many, many teams. I'm sure you could give me some examples. The player for player, that team was better than your team, but your team won. And the reason your team won is because you had better team dynamics and you came together as a team. So tonight I wanted to talk a little bit more about legacy. All right. And, when I look at legacy, I think about what would someone say about you? You could also look at legacy in terms of someone's living on this earth and they pass. What is their legacy? Meaning, what did they leave behind? What was their impact? How apropos. What was their impact? Okay. On other people's lives. So what I would like to have you do right now, hopefully we can get quite a few of you. I see I have a lot of leaders with their cameras on. What I'd like you to do in the chat, I want you to put one word in there of how you would want someone to describe you. All right, so think of your legacy. And if I randomly picked one of your teammates and I said, tell me about Callie, tell me about Sydney, tell me about Abby, tell me about Jillian. What would be one word that you would want to be described as? Go ahead, put it in the chat. Great, thanks, Abby. I see dedicated. Thoughtful. Committed. Loud. Caring. I want to be on this team. Passionate. Hardworking. Determined. A leader, loyal. Hardworking, determined. I'm just checking here. Encouraging. So I thank you. We had a good amount of people. So that's one way of looking at legacy. How would someone describe you? What impact are you making? So I made up a short little presentation. All right. And probably because I'm a college professor, I've been teaching too long. But anyway, so I'm going to go through that and touch on legacy a little bit deeper. And by all means, I think Dina is going to woman the chat. And so if she sees some questions, by all means, put some questions in the chat for me. Okie doke. So let me go to. Dina, you have to help me. Actually, you know what I could do? I could email you the PowerPoint.
Okay, I have it as a share screen if you want to.
Okay, I'll share. Okay, good.
Awesome.
There we go. All right, so let me go here. Okie doke. So building your legacy, be a leader for positive change. And so, as Dina said, I'm Shawn Ladda. I teach at Manhattan College, and I also am proud that I was past president of the National Association for Girls and Women in Sport, which actually is an organization that doesn't exist anymore, but it was one of the early organizations that oversaw women's, I should say, very early on, athletics, as well as physical education organizations. So I'm sure many of you have excellent physical education teachers in your school, and so they would be familiar with this organization. And, you know, I always pay homage to my mentor. I've had many great mentors, and one you can see here many years ago. This is Dr. Mimi Murray. She was the USA women's gymnastics coach many, many years ago. And here she is spotting someone on the uneven parallel bars. I don't even know if any of you know the uneven parallel bars. Oh, yes, you do, because you watch the Olympics. So I paid tribute to Dr. Mimi Murray, and she was a longtime professor at Springfield College. And Dean and I share, we're alums of Springfield College in Western Mass. I'm sure you're familiar, an outstanding institution. So I like to pay homage to a mentor, an educator, an advocate, a change agent. And Mimi also was past president of the National Association for Girls and Women in Sport. All right. So I show you this picture because some of you may not be familiar with the history of women's sports. And, you know, many of you were just born 13 years ago. So you're not familiar with the 1970s. Maybe you need to ask some of your grandparents and they can tell you about the 1970s. But I use the high heel as a metaphor, so to speak, of the 1970s, because in the 1970s, there weren't very many organized women's sport. And so I use the high heel because how many of you could play soccer in high heels? Is there anyone? No one's raising their hand? What do you think, Sydney? Could you play soccer in high heels? No. Although I have to say I have a teammate from Penn State who she loved wearing high heels. And she would go out to fraternity parties. And if she saw a soccer ball, believe it or not, she could juggle a ball with high heels. I've never seen really anyone do that, but my teammate from Penn State can juggle with high heels. But typically, you can't do much in high heels except for stand, right? Now, if you look in the 1970s to the 1990s, that's more when, and I'm going to touch on Title IX, that all of you should be familiar with. I hope you've heard of Title IX, and I'll explain it real quickly to you. But it was passed in the 70s. And so hence we saw more organized women's sport. You know, in the 1970s, actually the first organized girls soccer team in Wellesley, Massachusetts was in 1971. All right, so not that long ago. I actually have my shirt here somewhere, you know, when I was a little girl playing on the Wellesley team. But anyway, from the 70s and 90s, that's really, you know, Title IX had such a huge impact. A lot more high school teams were added, club teams, college teams. And so I have platform sneakers there. So you can move a little bit more. And then now all of you are so fortunate. You're in the 2020s here, okay, or 2010s when you were born. And now, believe it or not, we can move in sneakers. There's many more opportunities for girls and women. So a little evolution, a little sport history there for you. All right. But today, believe it or not, even though, you know what, you're fortunate to be involved with Impact and club soccer, elite soccer, today there's still mixed messages that girls and women have a lot of opportunities, but still not as many as boys and men. And so we need to continue to be leaders and advocates for girls and women in sport, as well as boys and men. There's so many great positive outcomes from being involved in sport. And I'm sure each one of you could name something. Let's put that in the chat. put something in the chat why you like to be involved with soccer. Why are you on a club soccer team? What's great about being on a team?
I'll read it to you. So community, Wiley from the '08 Aztec Red team.
You must have some reasons why. Why are you on a team? What is so great about being on a team?
So Abby G, South Shore Select '07, the connections I have on my team. Carmela from Aztec '07, you can be a leader. Coach Kersker, friendships. Sydney '07 Select, friends. Riley Plant, I love every girl on my team and I've built lifelong friendships. Jesse Ayers, opportunities and connections.
Awesome, awesome. So do you, if more come in, Dina, just yell them out, okay? But today we have, we have more mixed messages, okay? Meaning that we don't have as many opportunities as we could. So we need to continue to be advocates for all boys and girls, men and women to have an opportunity to play. All right. Well, here you go, 1973. This was one of the first soccer teams that I was on. Okay. Do you notice it was the boys team? I'm right there. See that right there. All right. And Mr. Ferraro was my coach. All right. He was from Italy, had only been in the United States for a couple of years. And Mr. Ferraro was a really smart man because he didn't care if you were a boy or girl or you preferred the pronoun they. He just wanted great players. And guess what? I was a great player. So he liked me. So I have my two brothers in front here. Okay. So 1973, that was after my family lived in Wellesley, Mass. And I played on the girls National League in Wellesley. And then we moved like the next year. And I felt like I was going to the cave woman days because Massachusetts was a lot more advanced in terms of having girls and women sport opportunities. And I moved to Pennsylvania and oh goodness, there weren't very many opportunities, but I wanted to show you that. One of my first soccer teams. All right. So I always have to mention Title IX. All right. Title IX is 48 plus years young. All right. And sometimes people think Title IX is so complicated, but it's not. This is as long as Title IX is. All right. We could count the words. So no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. That is what Title IX is, okay? And actually, Title IX was passed in the Congress not because of sports. It was passed because women were applying to graduate schools. For example, many of the Ivy League schools, they were applying to Harvard, to Yale, etc., Columbia, and women were not being admitted to graduate school just because they were a female. They had 4.0 GPAs, they had done well on all the GREs, standardized tests, but they were just strictly denied just because they were a smart woman. And so Title IX was passed because Birch by a number of different Congress people lobbied and said, this isn't right. This is not right. Women should be able to go to graduate school at any school they want. So anyway, it was passed. And pretty quickly after that, some astute people in the athletic arena realized, oh my gosh, this can apply to athletics on the college and university level. And from there, oh my goodness, so many colleges and universities started to add athletic programs. And so we need to give a lot of props to Title IX. All right. Title IX is a very positive thing. Title IX is a positive thing for girls and boys and men and women. It really is just saying that, regardless of who you are, all right, that sports can be great for everyone and everyone should have that opportunity to participate. All right. Just so you know, when Title IX was passed in 1972, most head coaches were women. And today we see a much lower percentage of women that are coaching, or I should say are hired on the collegiate level, 42.6%. And part of that, it's an unintended consequence. And part of it is because as women's athletics has become more respectable, more men want to coach women. Way back when, men didn't really want to coach women. It wasn't looked upon as a positive coaching situation, but today it is. All right. There's great women's teams to coach. So here's a picture of me my freshman year at Penn State. And momentarily, I'm going to show a short video that kind of gives you an overview of my history at Penn State. Actually, in high school, I told you I went to Hershey, PA, Chocolatetown, USA high school, and they did not have a soccer team there. All right, I played on that boys team. My number one sport actually in high school was tennis. And I was recruited to play tennis at Penn State. And I got to Penn State in August, all right, my freshman year. And the tennis coach said, all right, Shawn, you know, you're going to come and come to practices, but I'm not going to be able to put you on the official roster in January because I have a lot of seniors. So you'll officially be on the tennis team in January, but you come and practice. So I, you know, would go and practice, and lo and behold, I saw a sign up saying try out for women's soccer at Penn State. I said, you know, I always like team sports. I'm going to go do that. I'll give it a try. So I tried, I made it. I started for 4 years and I never went back to tennis. And it's funny, over the years, I've run into the Penn State tennis coach that recruited me. She humors me and she always says, that was my worst coaching mistake. I should have put you on that tennis roster. I lost you to soccer. Anyway, she's very kind. She's retired now.
Shawn, we never would have met in that case.
What?
We never would have met in that case.
I know. Fate. It's amazing, isn't it? Okay. So I went to Penn State, and this was the early years of women's collegiate soccer in the 80s. We were a club team, but we played all varsity teams. There were only probably, 15 varsity teams at the time, and we played them all. They were all in New England. I don't know if you realize, but women's soccer in the United States, where it was really a hotbed, was in New England. And a lot of Ivy League schools and small Ivies were playing soccer pretty early on. And so anyway, we did really well. My freshman year, we went to Brown University. We played in the first Eastern Regional Collegiate Tournament. UMass was there, UConn, Harvard, Brown, and those were all the good teams at the time. Vermont was actually there too. And then my sophomore year, we did really well. My junior year, and we really thought, geez, we should be a varsity team. We actually got more money as a club team than many of the varsity teams at the time. And lo and behold, the Penn State athletic director, my junior year, was Joe Paterno. It was the only year that Joe Paterno was athletic director. I'm sure you've heard that name, right? He was a longtime football coach at Penn State. I won't go into the big scandal. Anyway, you probably are aware of it. But anyway, we had a meeting. We got a meeting with Joe Paterno, 6 of us, to tell Joe Paterno, you know, you really should make our team varsity. And he said, oh, I have nothing against soccer, but we don't have the money to do that. Oh, yes, they did. They just didn't want to support another women's team. I should tell you that the National Women's Law Center estimates that over half of college and university athletic programs are not in compliance with Title IX. To this day, they are not in compliance with Title IX. So anyway, we said, what are we going to do? So we talked with some lawyers, and we ended up filing a Title IX complaint against Penn State my junior year, because probably the last straw was that Joe Paterno refused to allow us to play postseason, just because he was mad that we were pushing at him. You know, don't be afraid. You know, when things aren't right, you got to stand up. So it took actually 10 years. It was in the court system. And finally, 10 years later, Penn State was forced to have a soccer team. They mucked it up in the courts. It took a long time. But anyway, the good news is 2015, who won the women's soccer national championship, Division I? Penn State did. Yeah, right, Sydney? You're going to go to Penn State. So anyway, all right. Sometimes when things aren't fair, you gotta step up. You gotta say it. You gotta call, say it's not fair. It took 10 years, but we got it done. All right. There's our lovely field. I don't even know how I ended up. I did pretty well there. I really had very few injuries. I waited until I was 40 years young to tear my ACL. Go figure. I was playing in dawn to dusk, Lake Placid indoor tournament. I think I was on my 6th game. Oh dear, wasn't good. Non-contact step. Anyway, my knee's pretty good now, but I don't know how I managed not to get hurt on this field. It doesn't look that nice, does it? But anyway. All right, so that's kind of what I said. We filed the Title IX suit in 82. The court said, Penn State, you got to have a varsity team. And in 94 was Penn State's first varsity team. And believe it or not, in 2019, I waited over 40 years, but I got my varsity letter. Penn State finally acknowledged that they were wrong. Believe it or not, big institution, takes them a long time sometimes, but anyway, they did. And we were honored with a varsity letter a lot of years later. So let me, I'll show you this little clip. You're not sleeping, so that's good. Wiley looks alert. Camilla, we got Sarah, Sydney, Anna, Riley, Abby, Rachel, Reese, Callie, Hayden, Jesse, Jillian, Olivia, Isabella. I think I have all my leaders here. I love it. Yeah. Okay, I go to the second page and I don't know what they're doing over there, but on this page, I have the leaders. So let me show you this little clip. It'll kind of wrap it up. If I can find it. Oh, I don't know where it went. Okay, let me see here. There it is. I'll come back to you. Let's see if it wants to do it now. Here we go.
Challenge the past.
I think some of us are having problems hearing it, but we get the picture with what you shared.
All right.
I could actually share the link with everyone in the chat as well. You can save it.
You want me to put it in the chat?
I could do it while you're talking. It's okay.
Okay.
I'll find it.
Okay. All right. So with Title IX, I mean, the key really is that the athletics programs are fair and equitable to both men and women, and a good what should I say, thermometer with that is really, if you look at like the women's softball program and the men's baseball program, would teams be fine with flipping and exchanging resources? But that's a good general way to understand Title IX and if things are fair. You're in a club girls team and you see the club boys team. I mean, are the opportunities similar? Okay. But even so, as I said, I mean, we've made a lot of gains with Title IX, but it's, research shows that about 1.3 million fewer participation opportunities actually at the high school level. So we do have a ways to go to try to, really meet equity. You should also realize, though, many of you listed great reasons why you want to be involved in girls soccer, and there's a lot of benefits to it. And I'm going to touch on those in a minute to kind of wrap it up and open it up to any of your questions. But here's a good example of where sometimes things aren't still aren't fair. That many of you watched, I'm sure, the women's basketball NCAA tournament. I mean, there are great games this year, but early on they had set up these weights for the women's Final Four. And these weights on the left is what they set up. And then on the right is what the men's weights look like. So I know all of you are really smart. You can figure out, wait a minute. But what happened is there were a number of college basketball players, women, who went to social media and right away started posting this picture of how things weren't fair. And overnight, I mean, this is where sometimes social media can have a positive impact. Overnight, the NCAA made sure that the women had a good weight room. So sometimes we can use social media to influence positive change. Women's Sports Foundation is a well-known organization. They do a lot of research related to benefits of sports for women, for girls and women. And so let me just touch on findings with women involved in physical activity, less likely to get breast cancer, osteoporosis. I know many of you, that seems so foreign to you because usually those are diseases of older women. But girl athletes are less likely to smoke, less likely to vape. I mean, how are you going to vape and be a great soccer player? It's really hard to, less likely to use illegal drugs, to take sexual risk, less likely to be depressed, less likely to attempt or consider suicide, and more likely to complete college. So there's a lot of great benefits to being involved in athletics. And I know you listed some of these, and I think a few more here, especially when we look at mental wellness. It really is helpful. I know many of you have a much higher self-esteem. You feel better about yourself. And that's in the research related to girls and women maintain, all right, their self-esteem when they're involved in athletics. So overwhelming evidence, the benefits of physical activity for sport for both girls and boys and men and women. And so it's important for us to always thank Title IX and continue to support Title IX because we want all to have the opportunity. And there I am taking the ball from Christine Lilly. All right. You probably don't even remember her, but at one point she was on the national team. Okay, so keep wearing those sneakers and probably some cleats too. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to add before we open it up, one of the reasons why we started the New England Impact, or the founding clubs did, and asked me to join on, one of the benefits of being part of the Impact, first of all, we're different than any other NPL league because of all the things that we're doing off of the field. And we really believe in every single girl that has, as part of our system, part of our league, part of our clubs. We believe in you as individuals. We believe in you as compassionate teammates. And we believe that you're going to carry the torch beyond what you're doing right now. So 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the things that hopefully you've learned and experienced through your team environment and through some of these guest speakers and just from one another, all of those things will really start to develop who you are as a person, and you will eventually give back. So, being an advocate has to be something that you feel comfortable doing, and some fire will be lit in you, and you're just going to speak up, and you're going to find that inner voice. It's hard. Shawn Ladda was 18, 19 years old, going against a Joe Paterno, who was still a legend back then, to say, this is wrong. And that's a really difficult thing to do. Title IX has been instrumental in changing so much for all of us, girls, boys, males, and females. And so hopefully you've really understand the reason why the Impact is different is because we're doing a lot of things to develop you off the field as a complete person. And I believe in that so much. And so I hope you gain some of that tonight as well. So let's open it up for some questions, feedback, anything you want to ask. Go ahead. You can unmute yourselves. We trust you. So can someone tell me, did you know what Title IX was before today? Oh, and maybe what was your perception of Title IX? Anyone? How about, did you see the difference with the NCAA men's and women's basketball tournaments? Did you hear about the differences with the weights and the weight room? And we heard it and we saw it through TikTok, right? Most of us, probably TikTok was where it was at that we saw this happen.
We don't have any Instagram people.
We do, because they all follow me on Instagram. But I think that's where a lot of us actually saw
TikTok.
the video.
Yeah, TikTok.
Yeah. But you know what? I didn't say March Madness when I was talking about the men's and women's basketball championships either, because the women can't use March Madness in their branding or the language when they're even talking about their championship, which is another whole story, which is another area really under Title IX, right, Shawn?
There's no doubt about it. And for years, I would go to TGIF. Do we still go to TGIF for Fridays? Or I'm trying to think, some of these chains, and they would have special appetizers during March Madness. And so I would show up and my friends would go, oh no, here she goes again, here she goes. But I would say, wait a minute. I want these special appetizers. And they would say, no, it's not March Madness. I said, yes, it is. Turn on right now. We need to turn the channel. Women's basketball is on. And so they would go get the manager, and the manager would come out, but by golly, I would get my special appetizers for March Madness. So, I mean, that's another little story about, standing up, and not being so peer influenced, and that's another great benefit of being involved as a girl. You're less likely to just go along with the crowd, You're going to be an independent thinker. And when you see something that's unjust, or you see someone treating someone the way they shouldn't, you're going to say something. You're not just going to, let it go by. That's not a leader. That's not leaving a legacy. All right. That legacy. And I like Jessie. Jessie is following me. Jessie's shaking her head. I love it, Jessie. And Reese, come on, Reese. I'm depending on you. Go ahead, Dina.
Well, I would add though, we are lucky that we're in the sport of soccer because our women's national team has certainly changed the way women's athletics is perceived in this country and beyond. So I didn't know if you want to speak to that because I know that you've been to, I mean, pretty much every World Cup and you've been around. So if you can
Yeah, I've been around, the way Dina talks. I mean, I should be 100 years young, but I'm not quite 100 yet. But I have to say, the first ever official women's soccer World Cup. Does anyone know? I mean, it was well before you were born. No, it was 1991. And it was in China. And I actually was a college coach then. I was coaching at Columbia University. And I said to myself, I'm going to be so frustrated if I stay in the United States and there is no television coverage and I am not going to be able to see the national team play. So guess what? I went to China. I packed my bags and I went for a month to China in 1991. And we won the first ever official Women's World Cup. I don't know if you know these names: Michelle Akers, April Heinrichs, Karen Jennings, Gebauer. Anyway, it was awesome. So 91, the Women's World Cup happens every 4 years. So 1995, it was in Sweden. Guess what? I packed my bags. I went to Sweden. In 1999, 4 years later, was in the US. Does anyone remember when the US team won? Maybe you were an infant. Oh yeah, good. Sarah does. And Brandy Chastain ripped off her shirt. Yeah, that was in 99. And then 2003, the Women's World Cup was supposed to be back in China. And guess who was going to go to China? I was going to go to China, but they had the SARS outbreak, which is similar to COVID-19. So they moved the tournament to the US last minute in 2003. So I was traveled around and went to those games. 2007, it was back in China, but in northern China. Guess who went to China again? I went to China. I went back to China, northern China, and yeah, it was awesome. And then let's see, in 2011, it was in Germany. Yep, I went to Germany. Oh yeah, it was awesome. And then in 2015, did anyone go to Canada and see the Women's World Cup in 2015? It was in 2015. Yeah, it was. It was in Canada. And then I went to Canada. And then in 2019, it was in France. Yep. Who went to France? I went to France. So far, all right, you might see me when I'm 100 years old and I'll be on one of those morning shows and they'll say, Dr. Shawn Ladda, her claim to fame is that she's gone to every Women's World Cup since 1991. And okay, here's trivia. Where is the next Women's World Cup going to be? Oh, Jessie has it. Where, Jessie?
I think it's Australia.
You are so smart. It is going to be co-hosted Australia and New Zealand. Okay, next trivia question. Who is going to be in Australia and New Zealand watching the Women's World Cup in 2023? Who?
You.
Me. Yeah, me. Exactly right. So it has been an incredible run. How many of you came down to the New York City parade honoring the women's national team? Megan Rapinoe was leading the parade. It was awesome. But it is true, Dina. I agree with you. We have a lot of really good role models on the women's national team that are speaking up, supporting one human family, celebrating us all. And so it's awesome to see those kind of role models.
Sure is.
Do we have any women's national team players on this call?
Do we have any coaches on that? I don't know.
No, I was thinking players. Do we have some up and coming players here?
Oh,
I'm gonna watch,
We do have a question here. Can you speak to the connections you and other college coaches and administrators use Legacy to speak about players that might be great foes to their program. So did you understand that question? Hopefully I got that right. For their programs. Hold on a second. Well, there's a misspelling in there. Could Shawn speak to the connection she and other college coaches and administrators use legacy to speak about players that may be great for their program? So in the recruitment process.
You know, the recruitment process, I coached at Columbia University, and I also coached at the great institution, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and I was an assistant coach at Springfield College. And, you know, I touched on this actually at the very beginning when I said about you can be a great player, but you cannot be a great team player. And so, what in the recruiting process, not only did I want someone that was really talented, all right, soccer wise, but I wanted someone that was talented in terms of building a team. And, you know, where you find that out, you find that out from different teams that the person has played on. You know, I mean, how have they acted? How have they acted when, you know, maybe they were taken out of the game? You know, do they take their cleats off and throw them, you know, at the bench? I don't know if any of you remember Hope Solo. Anyone remember? Do we have any goalkeepers here? Hope Solo and Brianna Scurry. They were both goalkeepers on the women's national team. And Hope Solo was taken out of the game. And she was just a big pout. She was just on that bench, not being a very good sport. And, you know, she really took the team in a negative place. And so, yes, you want to be a great soccer player, but you also need to be a team player. You know, you need to be supporting the team. And you may disagree, you know, with playing time and this and that, but ultimately you're on a team. And any coach wants that team to be successful. So my best advice is you want to just do your best in practice and games, you know, as a person. And, you know, hopefully you'll shine to be able to perhaps contribute more on the field. I don't know, Dina, did I answer that question or?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And you know, just to add to that, how you act is your legacy, because as Shawn brought up in the beginning, what do you want people to say about you? How do you want to be known? How do you want people to describe you? Which is actually one of our first talks that we had as the impact was to write down 3 words to describe yourself and then ask other people, how would they describe you? Do those things match? Do those, and to think about the gaps that might exist and the similarities that might exist. It's the same thing with legacy too. So thinking about how you want people to talk about you when you're not in the room, it's a powerful thing to think about.
Let me share. I don't know if, does anyone have this book?
Can't see it because of the
Because of,
Raising Tomorrow's Champions.
yes. It's Raising Tomorrow's Champions, and it's actually by Joanna Lohman. Okay, Joanna Lohman actually graduated from Penn State, and she played on the in the National League for the Washington team. And there's a lot of good stories in here, you know, that I think the impact might enjoy. But I can send you the information, Dina.
Great, awesome. Do we have any other questions from the impact?
I really do appreciate Sydney and Sarah and Olivia and Jesse and Hayden and Abby, Jillian, Wiley, Callie. Am I saying that right, Callie? Riley. Is it Camilla or Carmela?
Carmela.
Carmela. Okay, great. Good. All right, Sydney, and we have Anna and Isabella. That's wonderful. And you know, the great thing with all this technology is, there is some concern sometimes people with the camera, they don't really want people to see their background. You can have a virtual background or you can blur your background, but I really do appreciate those leaders that I can see your face and your attention, and your participation in the chat.
Does anybody have one more question? Just to think about what the word advocate means, I think about that a lot, because people think that I'm really always speaking up about things that I want to see change in or things that bother me. And so I want you to think about that after tonight. Just when you're just lying in bed, whatever, think about what it means to be an advocate, what it means to take up a cause that's important to you, what it means to not walk away and to say something if you see something that's wrong. All those things are part of developing your decision making when you become an adult as well. And so young people like yourselves can all be change agents by the decisions you make right now. And that's part of your legacy. And again, I said this in the first time we met each other, that I made a ton of mistakes and I still will make a lot of mistakes. But it's how I react and how I apologize for my mistakes even, or acknowledge my mistakes and become a better person because of those mistakes. So you're not going to be perfect on the field, off the field, in the classroom. You're never going to be perfect, but trying to do the right thing is part of your legacy. And asking people, could I have done this differently? How could I have said that differently? All those things help to develop you as a person, and your decision making as well. And finding a mentor. Go ahead, Shawn.
Anna, you had your hand up earlier. Were you going to say something, Anna?
I was gonna ask if you hesitated to stand up for women's sports, or no, because you thought it was the right thing to do.
I don't know. Maybe it's just in my genetics. I have some good genetics for standing up, but I didn't tell you the whole story, and maybe sometimes different situations that happen to us really mold us as a person. And when I was, maybe 10, 11, no, I must have been 11. I got kicked out of Little League. My brothers played Little League, and I said to my mother, I want to go to their practice. And she's like, you can't play Little League. They don't allow girls. I said, let me go to practice. So I went to my brother's Little League practice. They were a little younger than me. And I would stand behind the backstop. I would bring my glove. And when there were foul balls, I would shag those foul balls because I wanted practice. And a coach said, hey, who is that girl behind the backstop? She's good. And my brother said, that's my sister. And he's like, why doesn't she play? And my brother's like, they don't allow girls. And he's like, that's crazy. She's good. So he said, you can be on the team. I said, all right, but everyone tells me girls can't play. Well, I know girls can play, but the league doesn't allow it. And he goes, don't worry about it. He goes, I'll just ask the opposing coach if he's okay with having a girl play. And as long as he's okay with it, you can play. So I'm like, okay. So of course these men coaches said, sure, so what? Let's have a girl play. So I'm out there playing in the outfield and our team's getting beat. And the coach said, hey, lad out there, can you pitch? And I said, sure, I can play whatever position you want, because I wanted to play. So I got up there and I struck out the first boy. And then I struck out the second boy. And then I struck out the third boy. And then the fans went nuts. The parents yelled at me. And the opposing coach said, she can't play anymore. I still have the game ball. I have the game ball. I got kicked out of Little League. That was it. That was my Little League career. So early on, I saw the injustices. Why? I'm good, so I get kicked out. I mean, when I played on that boys soccer team in Pennsylvania, parents yelled crazy things at me. I mean, really rude and mean things. And you know what? It just made me play better. I don't hear that. I don't hear that. I totally focus on playing. I don't hear coaches yelling at me. I don't hear anyone yelling at me. I just go and I score. So early on, I think I saw, how things weren't fair. And if I wasn't going to stand up, who was going to? And at Penn State, even though it didn't impact us in terms of having varsity status, look at how many people it impacted, So doing the right thing really is great. You really can make, make the world better. It makes you grow as a person.
It's great. These are great stories, girls, and maybe you didn't have to face any adversity that that you're hearing. And you know what? That's because of Shawn Ladda and people like Shawn who were
A lot of
able to
people out
take that
there.
risk. Yeah, they're trailblazers, and you'll hear words like pioneer, trail. All of those things are part of your history. So without the people before you, we're not on Zoom today doing all the great things that that we're able to do together as a group of really strong females. And that's
Dina, do you see a question here from Abby? She wants to know, what is a good way to be recognized by colleges? A big way is, playing on competitive club teams. I mean, in the impact, being involved in elite club teams, going to tournaments, and really networking with your coaches. A lot of these coaches know college coaches. And the key is, you want your club team to be honest with college team coaches. And you want, if you're in those tournaments, that's where, college coaches are and they're watching. It's always good to have a good video of yourself playing as well. But, you have to make sure you don't put your head on Megan Rapinoe's body. It's got to be for real. It's got to be you, and it's got to be realistic. And I mean, that's a decision you make. I have a nephew who wanted to play Division I. And, he just sits on the bench. And people told him, people said, you know what? If you go to Division I, you might be able to be on a Division I team, but you're going to sit the bench. You would be better suited going to a really good Division III team and playing a lot. And for some of you, you have to make that decision, try to be realistic. I loved playing at Penn State, even though we were club, I mean, we were competing on, with varsity teams. I loved it for 4 years. I love my teammates. I see them occasionally now. Dina, I'm sure, has stories too. We love the teammates, being on that team, working together, playing our best. I mean, those were just 4 great years. And so, you can be on a great team, Division I, Division II, Division III. The key is you gotta, if you choose to go to college, play college soccer. I mean, you want to go to a college that has a couple majors that you like. You never know when you're going to get injured. I mean, I always said to recruits, if for some reason you get an injury and you can't play soccer, are you going to be happy? Are you going to be happy at this college or university? So you gotta consider that, but definitely being involved with impact, playing against high level players, playing in tournaments, that's a huge way to, for college coaches to find you. And I mean, you could, always write to email college coaches, have your soccer resume, have a video to promote yourself too. But you need to, be realistic.
great. It's great advice. And we are hosting our own actually college showcase May 23rd. So we're encouraging our players to who are in the college process to start to email those coaches to invite them, which is, again, you're advocating for yourself and you're putting yourself out there. And that's an important piece of your own college search and journey for sure.